Hello and welcome to a new series I'll be doing. Now, and this Game Boy jingle is if you hold the joystick in a non-neutral position. Comes with Game Boy jingle. Now we've got three things: Game Boy, which is green screen, Game Boy Pocket, which is black and white, and Game Boy Color, which is different colours as you do Game Boy Color. But I'm not going to use Game Boy Color because it's very different for each one. So the game I'm going to be playing, as I've said during my Mario vs Donkey Kong playthrough, is of course Game Boy Donkey Kong from 1994, also known by fans as DK94 because it came out in 1994. And the cool part about this game is, and let's watch this bit, it's very, very like, aside from the mini Marios, actually aside from the story, in gameplay wise, it is very like Mario vs Donkey Kong. Mario can do all the same moves, handstands as you can see, like handstands, backflips as he just did, spinning off of wires, all those kind of moves. Now the controls, oh yeah, I can rewind up my double handstand, yeah I know I can be, so, I'd say like, the only difference is A is the jump button, B is the pick up and throw items button, can't remember what start does, select allows you to see previous times, and then of course, these do, of course joystick do moving and stuff, and that's it. But this game does have fall damage in it, so if you fall a certain height, you will take damage. So, start. Now, oh yeah, this is so cool. Dun 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 dun. Help, help. Anyway, this is the original 1981 classic, classic Donkey Kong. But anyway, I can use like backflips and handstand jumps and stuff. I'm going to say about how I kind of really love this game. You see, sometimes in my life I've travelled to Sheffield. And like, I will explain about fall damage. You can still do like throwing the hammer and stuff. But how fall damage works is if you fall a small amount, Mario will just won't do anything. If you fall a bit further, he will roll. He will do a forward roll when he lands. If you go even further, the Mario will, oh, here come the jacks. Good. Ah! Tried to backflip. Right. There we go! Now, if you fall a bit further than that, Mario will land on his back and will be vulnerable for a bit. If you fall too far, Mario will land on his head and die. Now, how I really loved this game, it goes like this. So, I knew about this game because of the Donkey Kong, oh you know what, let's just, also different animations for different things. Let's go and hammer some fires, and you can also throw it up, and then jump and catch it, like that. But anyway, like, I knew about this game from Sheffield. In Sheffield, they had a in the game museum in Sheffield, they had a Donkey Kong kind of exhibition of here's all the Donkey Kong games here's all the versions of the original arcade Donkey Kong game, and this included Game Boy Donkey Kong, which interestingly Game Boy Donkey Kong, it was literally just a NES controller hooked up to a monitor, and I'd play through this game. Of course, I'd never beat it because this was like Mario vs Donkey Kong. This game is worlds, so of course when I was there, I would never be able to beat it because I would just be like, nothing too much, but of course I'd never be able to beat it because I wouldn't have the time. We'd be there for like, say, 2 to 3 hours or something, and I'd get a bit stuck on the, oh, actually let's listen to this, it is a bit funky, but it's such good, oh, that. Anyway, I'd never be able to beat it because I'd run out of time, because we were there for like 2 or 3 hours. When I did beat it was when they put it on, Game Boy Switch Online here for Mario Day. Sorry, the song's very panicky. So that's how I fell in love with this game, and when they released it for Nintendo Switch Online, when they released it on Nintendo Switch Online, I was so happy, and I went through and beat this game and stuff, because like Mario vs Donkey Kong, this game is worlds, and the levels are also much shorter to a degree. Like, there's no mini Marios or anything. That was a Mario vs Donkey Kong thing that they did in that series, was the mini Marios. Oh. Okay, let's watch us get chucked. I did not mean to backflip there. Like, I just did that completely by accident and forgot. If you land in Donkey Kong's range, he will grab you and throw you. Grab. Anyway, like, what then happens? So, I'm going to play through this bit and then something. Oh, nope. Don't want that. No. Good. Get the one up. Do this, and that should be the end of the game. And Donkey Kong is dead. And we win, like in the original arcade game. Oh, what's this? Oh no! He's ran off with Pauline. Oh no! Here we go. And this is the start of a big adventure. And also you can easily get loads and loads of lives. Oh no. And then here come the key. But like, this game is so good. It's regarded as one of the Game Boy's best games. It's such a fun game. So yes. So you trek across 9 worlds, defeating Donkey Kong. Help! Anyway, this is kind of the kind of stuff that you'd be more experienced with on Mario vs Donkey Kong. I would say double handstand doesn't really work much. And also you can go around collecting like in the arcade game, you can go around collecting Pauline's parasol, purse and hat. And then you just have to bring the key to the door. So, and also if you do that, you can play like one of two, I think it's one of two bonus games. So this Wheel of Fortune slot machine, this Wheel of Fortune game, and then the slot machine, which you can get a lot out of like 10 lives. You can also go flipping, and by flipping I mean, you know, as in like, get out of here. But anyway, you can also go and go spinning like this, you know, like you do in Mario vs Donkey Kong, like that. Wow, like that is pretty cool. Anyway, I also said last episode, on the final episode of Mario vs Donkey Kong, about a book I've been reading. Now this book is going to be very spoiler heavy, but like 60 different stories, and you're probably thinking, what? Why 60 different stories? That's insane. But I'll explain it to you. So I was reading a book called Death Cloud, right? Now, oh, slot machine time, okay. Time. Okay. Anyway, I was reading a book called Death Cloud, and I knew it was a Sherlock Holmes book, but I realised, and I'll explain the term canon in both of its meanings. In the meaning of normal canon, the term canon is used to refer to, the term canon in a normal meaning is used to refer to what is actually in the actual source material, like a book, or like, let's say Harry Potter, what's canon in that kind of deal. Like what's canon in the original Harry Potter books, in what is in the original Harry Potter books, and specified like what happens at the what happens at the end of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which is the final book in the series. Stuff like that. That's what canon normally means. So the book I was reading that takes a long time is, I found a copy of all 60 of the original Sherlock Holmes stories. Now Sherlock Holmes, canon means something a bit different. Canon in Sherlock Holmes in the terms of Sherlock Holmes means something different compared to normal canon, which I've just explained. Normal canon. Canon in Sherlock Holmes is different. Canon in Sherlock Holmes is basically canon in Sherlock Holmes is basically like, what canon Sherlock Holmes basically is it is where it is used to, now canon is usually what's meant to be in normal circumstances. It's like with Harry Potter, it's meant to be it's meant to separate the differences between what actually happens in the story, like what actually happens in we get a boss fight. Well, no, an action stage, like the original Game Boy, like the original, what's it, waiting, come on, there. But canon in terms of, let's say, Harry Potter, for example, is meant to be, here is what happens in the, here's what actually happens in Harry Potter. And then, it's meant to differentiate between normal canon, and for those of you who are not familiar with the terms, like, it's meant to differentiate between what happens in normal canon and then when compared what actually happens, it's meant to differentiate what actually happens, so people don't get confused between something called fanfiction, which is where fan writes like little things about a character or something like that, and then what it's also meant to differentiate between is like headcanons, which is a term which basically means a fan's own interpretation of something. Which is one thing I find interesting, is like how, oh cool, we get these little cutscenes, I forgot. But one thing I find cool about headcanons is how it's like, take a character from a time where something like neurodiversity didn't exist, someone could headcanon that character as being neurodivergent, that kind of thing. And that's what I find very interesting, is like how characters can be viewed as different things. But in terms of Sherlock Holmes, canon is used to differentiate between two things. It is meant to differentiate between the term canon is meant to differentiate between all of the original works, so all 60 of the original books, well no, all 60 of the original stories, so the 4 novels, and all 60 of the original stories which have Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson in them, and other works created by other authors like Andrew Lane, which have Sherlock Holmes in them, but they're not the original Sherlock Holmes books. And it's meant to differentiate between that and, like, for example, Andrew Lane, who did Death Cloud, which is what I started reading. Death Cloud, for example, is not the original Sherlock Holmes. It is what would be called an origin story. Actually do those in the opposite way around. So I've started reading the whole of all 60 of the original Sherlock Holmes books. So I'm still on A Study in Scarlet, because it starts with A Study in Scarlet, then it goes to A Sign of 4, because how it works is you've got 4 novels: A Study in Scarlet, The Sign of 4, Hound of the Baskervilles, and Valley of Fear. And then the rest of them, like The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, oh yeah, did that completely wrong. So the original, so it goes to studying Scarlet. I've said about the original 4 novels. And then what then happens is after the original 4 novels, well, the original 4 novels are not not in chronological order, but then you have the 54 short stories spread across like the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, the Return of Sherlock Holmes. Now we're in a boss battle. So the kind that we usually get in Mario vs. Donkey Kong. So anyway, what's happened in Studying Scarlet so far? So right, the first two chapters are go along the lines of Watson and how he went and fought in the Afghanistan war, whenever that was, or whatever it was about. I don't know. I've never studied the Afghanistan war in history. Might have been the one between Russia and Afghanistan, I think, during like the Soviet Union or whatever. I think I remember that one. We talk about that one. But anyway, what then? So, and then it says about how he meets Sherlock Holmes. And then, after he meets Sherlock Holmes, it then says about how, well, they get a call about, well, they get a letter really, about how someone's dead in a house and is believed to be murdered. Sherlock goes around the house with Watson, starts humming to him, well, not humming, but starts muttering to himself. He's investigating the house, deducts a lot of different things, like how, although the other 2 detectives thought that, although the other 2 men thought that, someone was writing the name Rachel, they're actually writing the German word for revenge. Okay, we've got bridge switches now, and we're on to the second world. But anyway, what then happens is, Sherlock Holmes goes and Watson goes to the constable to check that Sherlock's got everything right. And the constable's saying his story right, and Sherlock just bluntly interrupts and goes, "I know what you saw," says his piece, and the constable is very like, "How do you know what I've seen? Where were you?" So anyway, that's going to be near the end of the episode. It's been 23 minutes. And so, we're not going to start that. No, never mind. We're not going to start the next bit. But I'll talk about what happens after he sees the constable. Let me just check if saved. Yes, I have. So, that's gonna be it. Maybe in a day or 2 I'll make another episode and I'll discuss what's happened next, but for now, bye.